Welcome back to Read, Rant, and Review. Isn't this chair awesome? It's like the best chair. It's just awesome chair. I found it at a thrift store. What? That's right. So I'm just going to be lounging from now on. Also because if I sit forward, the sun goes right on the side of my face. So yeah, you get lounging me. Welcome to Read, Rant, Review, and also where I film a bunch of videos all on the same day. And also where I mess around to try and get the lights. Look at this ridiculousness. I'm gonna have to do it like this. These are the problems that you have when you make videos and you don't even think about them until you go to make one, and then you're like, oh my gosh, the light is stupid, but I need to film now. So now that we have gone through how not to do lighting 101, let's talk about If I Ever Get Out of Here. Let's read us the synopsis from Goodreads, which is what I do now instead of reading the back because I never have the book anymore. Louis Shoe Blake is used to the joys and difficulties of life in the Tuscarora Indian Reservation in 1975. The joking, the fireball games, the snow blowing through his roof. What he's not used to is white people being nice to him. People like George Haddonfield, whose family recently moved to town with the Air Force. As the boys connect through their mutual passion for music, especially the Beatles, Louis has to lie more and more to hide the reality of his family poverty from George. He also has to deal with the vicious Evan Reiniger, who makes Louis the special target of his wrath. But when everyone else is on Evan's side, how can he be defeated? And if George finds out the truth about Louis's home, will he still be his friend? Now, right away, I know that a lot of people have compared this book to the absolutely true diary of a part-time Indian. And yes, they both star Native American characters who are kind of outcasts, but see, I recently just reread this book, which is why I'm reviewing it, because it was still really great. Spoilers, I liked it. But I haven't reread the absolutely true diary of a part-time Indian, so that just kind of shows you, like, they are sort of the same in concept, but they're different enough. And while I liked them both, I liked this one a little bit better. So let's talk about it. One of the things you will notice right away about this book is that all of the chapter titles are Beatles songs or songs by Paul McCartney / Wings, which is really cool. And the Beatles are a big theme in this book, and I didn't realize, because I listened to a lot of Beatles music growing up, but I didn't realize it really, that it was so ingrained in my psyche, because I pretty much, not only did I pretty much recognize all of the song titles, but I could start humming them. Which I guess maybe that's why this book connects to me more strongly than the real diary or whatever that book is called, Absolutely True Diary. Because of the Beatles thing, because of the music thing, I guess I was just like a Beatles fan who never realized I was a Beatles fan. I do enjoy Beatles music to this day, and so that musical connection really helped me love this book even more than I already loved it. So this book seems to almost kind of be divided up into two sections of, almost two stories within the book. The first part is our main character Louis meeting his new friend George and becoming his friend, and them going to a concert together and making that work. And the second part of the book is a lot more about Louis trying to hide his family situation, but beginning to let George into his life a little bit more. Like, in the beginning half of the book, they are establishing themselves as friends, and in the second half of the book, they are established friends trying to figure out where to go from that point. I don't know if I like it or dislike it. I guess they were very strongly, felt like two different stories about these characters. They could have been like two separate, very short books. But I enjoyed both of these two different stories sort of things, so I liked it. Also, the second half involved a lot more of dealing directly with the bullies that not just make Louis's life hell. Let's talk about the bullies for a minute. I love the way it was handled in this book. The bullies, of course, pick on Louis because he's native. They pick on Louis because he's small, because he's smart, but mostly because they really are legit racist. He goes to a white school, predominantly white school, and he is in higher special classes because he is very smart. And so the other native children who go to that school, he's not in the same classes with them because he is above average, and so he's all white people all around him, and most of them hate him for being Native. And he has an attitude that reflects his upbringing on the reservation. He makes a lot of jokes. He's a lot like me, honestly. The more I like you, the more I insult you. And it's that way too. And so when he tries to make friends by insulting them, the way that he would on the reservation, or the way that he would joke and insult his friends from the reservation, it doesn't work with the white people who are like, why are you being an ass? And I don't know, it makes sense to me because, yeah, that's how I am. And a big part of this story with the bullies is a lot of victim blaming. When they, especially this one bully, just beats the shit out of Lewis and leaves him completely bruised and battered and just harasses him every single day, and in full sight of the teachers. When he tries to seek help, people tell him, well, what did you do to anger this kid? Well, what can you do to avoid this kid? How is this your fault somehow, instead of the fault of the kid who is beating the shit out of you every day? It's painful to see, but it is so true, because victim blaming is a huge thing that happens in society right now all over. The other thing I liked in this book is that in so many stories with bullied kids, the kids throughout the story do not attempt to stand up for themselves, or do not attempt to seek help from adults. Or when they do seek help from adults and they're turned down, they give up. But Lewis is like, fuck no. I'm gonna try everything I can to stand up for myself. I'm going to tell all of the adults, and when the adults won't listen to me, I am gonna take it, to whatever level I need to take it to protect myself from getting the shit kicked out of me every day. Now, in Lewis's case, that does not necessarily involve fighting back, because he is not a big guy, he's a small guy. But it's cool to see a character who is bullied and then says, no, this should not be happening to me. I need to do something about this. If no one will help me, I will figure out a way to help myself until this is dealt with. And even though he doesn't have a whole lot of success, I love to see a character who knows that he shouldn't be being treated this way and tries everything he can to stop it. Versus the characters that we so often see in books who, up until the big climactic end where they finally stand up to the bully, are completely cowed the whole way through. I mean, he still gets the shit kicked out of him, but he knows he doesn't deserve it. This is a great story about family. We deal with especially Lewis's family and George's family, who are so utterly and deeply different from each other. George is actually from Germany. Originally he's from the United States, but then his father was deployed in Germany for a long time, and then he's just come back from Germany, and he has a German mother. And so their culture is super white, and obviously Lewis grew up on the reservation, so he has a very different culture and very different family dynamic. I love how close Lewis is with his uncle. His uncle, who probably has some form of autism, not really sure, but his uncle is an amazing character, and Lewis and his relationship with his uncle is one of the best parts of the book. Lewis has siblings who no longer live at home, and he has his mother, who is a single mother, which is kind of common on the reservation, and she, is the classic works her ass off for her family type of woman, and she's constantly paddling to keep her head above water, and she's always going under, and it's something that I'm pretty familiar with, not to the extent that Lewis is, but my family never had very much money when I was growing up, and while we always had food, it wasn't always the best food, but we were always fed, and I always knew that my parents were always trying to work really hard to take care of us. We never had new things. I was the eldest, but I didn't get new clothes. I got clothes that were handed down from other families in our church. So, we learned how to cope with, this is damaged in this, this item that we just got is damaged in this way. Well, how can we still use it? How can it still function? But, nothing, it's not pretty anymore, and that really, Lewis's situation and his family really did remind me of an extreme version of the way that I grew up, which, again, probably endeared me to this book even more. And of course, Lewis's mother has a lot of pride. A lot of times, people who are very poor and people who are working very hard and still cannot get out of poverty also have this great sense of pride where they won't let other people help them. And Lewis's mother definitely has this, and so he has to struggle because Lewis would like the nice things that are being offered to him by George's family, but he knows his mother will never accept these things. And it's a really cool dynamic, and it's so interesting to read about, these two worlds coming together. George is a really awesome character because he came from a military family and he's been living in different places. He was in Guam for a while as well, and so he's not racist, and he instantly latches on to Lewis to be his friend because Lewis just seemed like the person he wanted to be friends with, and he is a very true friend and a very good, fundamentally good person. And George's family is very interesting. George's father is a military guy, obviously, and so we see that he's kind of very disciplined, and George's mother is very German. George has this kind of fear of his father, and it's never completely explained why. Why does he have such a deep fear of his dad? I don't know. It's never really explained. Very small spoiler here. Gonna put a little spoiler thing up. I'm trying to only spoil very minimally this time because I want you to go read this book. It's a little spoiler thing. Boop. When it goes away, the spoiler will be over. Okay, so in the story, in the time of Lewis's grandparents, there were these boarding schools that Native children were sent to where they were to be deprogrammed, where they were punished for everything in their culture and, just brutally mistreated, horribly, treated, starved, beaten, the whole shebang. And so Lewis finds out that George's father's parents worked in a school for Native children, and he gets really nervous that it was a boarding school, one of those horrible boarding schools. But it turns out that it was not necessarily, and I kind of didn't like that. I kind of actually wanted it to have been, because it would have created another cool dynamic where it's like, I know my grandparents did terrible things to Native children, but that's not who I am, kind of a thing. Spoiler gone. Spoiler over, hooray! So all in all, I really enjoyed If I Ever Get Out of Here. I love the music, I loved the characters, I loved the story. I definitely recommend it. I think you should go read it. Go check it out.